Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're live across the country on our various affiliates. Also on Facebook now on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. This evening, former president and flag bearer aspirant of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, pleads for clemency for members of parliament who broke ranks in defying the party's orders to vote against the ministerial nominees.
Omo yes ano omo ndwen hu biom na echina me ensi sa biom enti yenja sa asem no na manenka.
This evening, we hear more from him as he rubbishes the list making rounds purporting to have identified the recalcitrant MPs who sabotaged the party's position on not approving President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees. There's more on this. Stay with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. The business community pushes for immediate withdrawal of key revenue bills being considered for passage by Parliament. Tonight, we engage a tax expert on the latest call from the Ghana Union of Trade Association, Guta Plus. Reaction from Information Minister Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah on this matter here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. There's a reason why you should be concerned about this particular development, about these three revenue measures or the amended tax bills in Parliament, which is going to be considered, all things being equal, by Friday. Parliament will vote on it. Being, if it is approved by Parliament, it's going to make, all things being equal, the cost of doing business higher. And the business community have indicated that if this happens, they're going to pass on the cost to us, the consumers. So you should be concerned about how this is going to come up. Stay with us. We're getting to the development here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. I am Alfred Ocansey. Let's get into it now. And former president and flag bearer aspirant of the opposition NDC has made a case for the party and its hierarchy to move on from the approval of ministerial nominees by some NDC MPs, the approval of President Akufo-Addo's nominees on Friday, in clear contravention to the party's order for members of parliament on the side of the NDC not to do so, has opened the party to scrutiny on one part while courting disaffection among the party's base. The NDC has announced a 30-day investigation to fish out MPs who reportedly betrayed the party's cause. Speaking at the Elembele constituency, as part of his campaign in the Western region, former President John Mahama called on members of the party to let go of what happened on Friday and forge forward. Take a listen to him earlier today.
There are little battles we have to fight before we go into the main battle. And that is one of those that we fought a few days ago. And so you don't throw the baby away with the bath water. What you are baby and so naive one share and so ne abofrano tonchene. We share so no tonchene no eja obano chance them. Enti yen to your MP tonchene. Yenya abotre. If you say and you may be brave or what I was say omoye mai. Media nyamika ne say omo mo yesa no omo ndwen hu biom na echina me ensi sa biom enti yenja sa asem no na manenka ne wo.
Well, so that's former President John Mahama. He's also called on supporters to disregard any list of party members of parliament who are purported to have voted for the approval of the new minister. In fact, when this happened on Friday, a number of Facebook posts and indeed some by executives of the party have purported to put out names of certain members of parliament that they suspect were behind the sabotage and also influencing other members of parliament to go against what the party had decided on the ministerial nominees of President Akufo-Addo. Let's go on to the telephone now. I'm going to come back to John Mahama, but let's go on to the telephone now. And Ambassador Victor Smith is a former High Commissioner of Ghana to the UK and a stalwart of the NDC. Let's pick his thoughts on this. Ambassador Victor Smith, thank you so much for your time on Hot Edition. First off, if I don't find out from you if you were also surprised about the happenings in Parliament on Friday, where we had almost 39 NDC MPs taking part in approving the ministerial nominees of President Akufo-Addo as against what the party had directed that they should do.
Good evening. I have listened to the former president, and you're asking me my views on what happened on Friday evening in the House of Parliament.
Indeed.
Of course, we were all very disappointed because the party had come out clearly as to what position we were to take in the interest of our country, which was in dire straits financially. The government is even trying to rake in pensioners' funds to support, to shore up the economy. So with all these challenges, there was a need to send a clear signal to government that you are going the wrong route because you are increasing numbers and you are increasing expenditure of government, and it's not going to help this country. We're getting deeper and deeper into a pit, if I may use that expression. And the whole world, the IMF, everybody thinks Ghana is in crisis because the management of the economy is not doing well. So when we come out clearly with the directive, we have to send a strong signal to the government as well as its members in Parliament. They know it. What they have done, what happened on Friday, ignore the NDC members who probably decided to do whatever they did on Friday. The MPP voted against Ghanaians. The wish of Ghanaians was that President cut numbers, cut the cost. And did he do that? They actually rallied around the president to do the wrong thing for this country of ours. What they have done is an insult in the face of Ghanaians. And so the people must decide in 2024 to kick out this bogus government because they're not thinking for this country, and for those who decided to use the secret ballot to do what they did should be ashamed of themselves. They may have their reasons. If I were somebody who would make that decision, let's say to vote, and I thought I would vote in favor of the government for some good reason, I would be bold enough to come out and say clearly, even at caucus strategic planning for this particular vote, that I would vote this way because this is what I believe. And when I believe in something and I know that I'm on sound ground and it's good, it makes sense, I would come out at the planning stage. But for you to go and be part of the party in the caucus decision and will come into the floor because the secret ballot, you decided to go the way you want, you should be ashamed of yourself. But seriously speaking, the President Mahama has said the right thing. This is not the time to rock the boat. What has happened has happened. The whole country has seen that it's very shameful for even the MPP. They should not be laughing. What the NDC, 35 people or 38 people, as you mentioned, what they did, it's just supporting the MPP for the wrong reason, the wrong thing. They've done the wrong things to Ghanaians. They've insulted Ghana in the face. We don't have finance. We are broke. The country's economy is in shambles. Those who wanted to get rid of the finance minister for whatever reason failed, and they just rally around the president because of political expediency. It doesn't make sense to me, my brother.
I see. Now, you're talking about what happened, and we know that some of them, in fact, the NDC MPs actually met the party leadership, they met the former president even before Friday, and he impressed on them not to depart from the party's position. In your view, regardless of all these meetings and undertakings prior to Friday, and even the presence of the party chair, Johnson Esiodun Ketia, in Parliament on Thursday and Friday, these NDC MPs still decided to break ranks and go against the party's directive. I mean, what does that tell you?
What it tells me that they have their own grievances. Those people who did what they did, they have their own reasons, okay? And if those reasons were good reasons, they will be coming out to say that I voted yes because of these reasons. Why are they hiding in the woodwork? Why are they hiding? They should be bold to come out and say that I did it for this reason. And if they want to get rid of me from the party, they can go ahead. But the fact of it, they are hiding.
In fact,
it was a secret ballot, so they are hiding.
In fact, of course, you talk about the reasons and that they decided, even regardless of the leadership's meeting with them. George Hagan, Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South, said he identified 3 reasons why these MPs may have gone against what the party told them to do. One being their position on how the leadership change in the minority in Parliament was done a couple of months ago. And it is clear that some members of Parliament were not too happy about how the leadership change was effected. And in his view, this was just a time for these disgruntled members of Parliament to also express their anger, so that if the party had succeeded this time around in getting the NDC MPs whipped in line to oppose President Akufo-Addo's nominees, it would have been a success to this new leadership, and the old leadership would have been despised. So it was just, they didn't have to make this happen, so that the new leadership would also be accused of not being effective enough.
Well, that was one of the reasons Richard Hagan gave. One of the reasons, I believe. You said there were 3 or so reasons.
That's one.
Yes, that could have influenced some people. And that's very parochial. A very parochial reason. Because I am hurt that the way and manner things were done, I'm going to go against the party's wishes, irrespective of how this country is suffering. Irrespective, forget about the party for a moment. The people of Ghana want us to repair the damage to our economy. And one of them is to cut down on expenditure. The whole world is saying, cut, cut, cut. And the president is increasing and spending more money by set appointment. He could have done things with, manage the cabinet or the ministers in such a way that we would reduce numbers. But of course, he didn't do it. And those in parliament, instead of doing what would save our country, decided to just follow the president sheepishly. And sorry to say that about 35 of our members or so also decided to go down that route for a different reason. They didn't support President Akufo-Addo because they thought that we needed to increase our cost. They believe that we have to cut the cost. But if for parochial reasons you decided to say that I will vote yes in support of Akufo-Addo just to hurt NDC, you should be ashamed of yourself, whoever decided to do that for that reason. There are other reasons that people suggest people took money.
Indeed, that's the second reason he talked about, the bribe. I mean, for you as a leading member of the party, how would you expect the party to approach this? Because this is not the first time this is coming up. I recall in March 2021 when the party directed the same MPs not to approve the nomination of Kojo Oponkroma as Information Minister, Howard Kumsin, and then also Dr. Freya Koto. They did not take part at the vetting, but when the issue came to the plenary, they went through. And then there were accusations of money changing hands as well. This issue of bribery again has come up this time around again. How should the party approach this?
You see, don't just blame the NDC alone. The current speaker, Right Honorable Bagbe, once said, we all take bribes in Parliament. It's documented. He said it, and nobody could take him to the cleaners, if you know what I mean. They have been so accused, both sides of the House, that they take bribes. Committees take bribes. This has come up several times. It's documented. It's in newspapers. Indeed, at one point, I wrote to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, the previous one, Martin Amido, to ask him to investigate that statement, that allegation against the House. And he said I should have experienced it myself to bring that petition. So I dropped it. So what I'm saying is that if this is accepted, it has become part of the culture of committees to take bribes, then it starts. I no wonder that they did not question Howard Kumsin when she was seen on a video footage after her nomination and she went through the vetting, that they wanted something small, so we gave them something small. If you remember that video.
Yes, I do.
Now, why wasn't she summoned to the House to come and explain this thing? Because you're accusing Parliament or our party of taking money. And nobody did anything to her. She's still a minister, as I speak.
And that's critical, is it not? I mean, this reference you make is critical, is it not? I mean, she's a member of parliament, a ministerial nominee who is approved by the minority, who many expect that would effectively represent the concerns and the views and aspirations and frustrations of the Ghanaian people.
No, I would have expected the leader at the time, the leadership of our party in parliament, to have summoned or have petitioned the speaker, to bring Howard Clinton to tell the whole world what money that they may have given to anybody. Of course, they didn't do that, and we all just went through it. Another opportunity has come, so I don't doubt the fact that the second reason that has to do with money exchanging hands or whatever, or money influence. I don't doubt it, but I currently have no proof. And nobody has owned that to say that I voted yes because I was giving money or I would be given money later. We have issues in the House of Parliament, and it's not just NDC. This corruption thing is everywhere. Ghana must wake up. We must wake up and deal with these issues, because one day it's going to be terrible. People influence people with money during elections and everything. I am totally against it. It worries me deeply.
And you said earlier that you agree with the former president and that Flag-bearer Hopeful and a few others who have also suggested that the party close ranks and move on. I mean, how should this be done? And also institute measures to address this situation so it doesn't happen again. Because as I indicated earlier, this is not the first time the party has directed or told its members of parliament to do one thing and then they go in to do another.
Well, we have a program running at the moment. We're heading towards the primaries for presidential and parliamentary. I expect that the party's leadership would put things, institute arrangements to investigate quietly, without rocking the boat, investigate what happened. That this time, again, something like this has happened. But it doesn't stop the process of going into this program. So the former president is campaigning for the flag bearership day. Yes, an issue has come up. Yes, it has to be investigated. Yes, if we are finding anybody who actually did what, there's a secret ballot, so it will be very difficult, for somebody to find out. It can maybe allegations. But we still have to try and look and find ways of preventing them from happening again. That much I support. And the whole nation must also work towards minimizing or reducing, the corruption in our country, even in the House of Parliament, even in the judiciary. We have a problem in this country. Somebody sat in my office this morning and told me about a judge who sent an agent to come and, as it were, influence him so that they can rule in his favor or something like that. I'm thinking that, he said it's true, but he was not going to mention the name to me. Now, there has been investigations in the past where judiciary and legislators have all been accused, including executive. And we just sit down and think that it's part of life. We must minimize it. It might help us improve our economy and our country's progress. Are we doing that? I have a problem with the way the whole country is being run. Seriously. And our party has to do its bit. And the MPP has to do their bit. And not just follow leadership sheepishly.
Ambassador Victor Smith, I thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Ambassador Victor Smith is a former High Commissioner of Ghana to the UK and a stalwart of the NDC, staying in his position there. But earlier, former President John Mahama called on supporters to disregard any list of the party's members of parliament who are purported to have voted for the approval of the new ministers. Take a look.
BBC Parliament, and for the fake list and the two social media strong prophecy said almost and a pro Abatia NDC. Salis now and yellow crack. It's about the list that they are putting on social media and alleging that those MPs are the ones who voted against the NDC, they are fake lists. And so I'm urging all NDC supporters to ignore it.
Oh, that's the former President John Mahama, flag bearer hopeful of the NDC earlier today. But 24 hours ago, the minority leader, Kesela Tofosin, tweeted, and I quote, "Do not roar like a lion, just set your target and hunt like a lion." Then Roxy Nelson Dafiamepo, who is also a member of parliament and who was the polling agent on Friday to ensure that the minority NDC MPs vote according to the party's directive, also responded to that tweet saying, "Leader, thank you for this message. As your polling agent for the day, I was heartbroken when I saw the pile of yes votes versus the no votes after the ballot sorting. The tragedy is that the 97 of us who were resolute and stood with the NDC and the nation are being vilified like the 39 who did not." So now we are having a number put to the NDC MPs who are reported to have gone against what the party directed, 39 of them. And this is a subject of investigation for the party. We're going to follow it quite closely. We'll be updating you as the days go by. But stay with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're live on Facebook on 3FM 927 on Facebook as well. And then also on Twitter and Instagram. We're streaming live there. And something that should concern all of us is that, barring any last-minute hiccups, Parliament is expected this week to consider and approve 3 key revenue bills government is seeking to pass as part of the conditionalities for the IMF bailout. Now, the bills are the Income Tax Amendment Bill 2022, the Excise Duty Amendment Bill 2022, Growth and Sustainability Levy Bill 2022. Now, the House is expected to take the bills by Friday, March 31, before MPs go on the Easter break. But the business community is kicking against the new revenue measures, indicating they are already overburdened with taxes. They fear a spike in the cost of doing business if the bills are approved. On Monday, the Ghana Union Trade Association, GUTA, issued a statement calling on government to stop the introduction of what it described as obnoxious taxes, arguing that the businesses are already overburdened with high taxes and interest rates. First Vice President of GUTA, Clement Boateng, spoke to us subsequently on this matter. I'm going to take a listen to him.
The policy rate has been increased and additional 150 basis has been added, not to talk about the numerous levies and taxes that we are paying at the port. So businesses are really suffering. We don't see the need for government, to lay this bill before Parliament. Government must try as much as possible, to find other means of raising revenue to meet its obligations, but not to always look at the port and try to burden the business community.
So that's the first vice president of the Ghana Union Trade Association, GUTA, Clement Boateng there. Well, Information Minister Kojo Ponkroma has responded to GUTA's concern, saying the taxes are necessary. He says Parliament, the government, and the business community must find a common ground on the matter.
So I think the first thing we must understand is that for every revenue measure, somebody will be affected. And so it is understandable that somebody will push back saying that this will affect me. That's understandable. But we must also look at the bigger picture of what we want to achieve collectively as a republic. And in the midst of that, also be willing to have a certain conversation. What are the tweaks that can be made to the current draft of the bill as is, so that we can find a good middle ground and still close this about 4 billion gap that we need to do on the revenue side. So I'm not even too fixated about arguing with GUTA or AGI or somebody. We must find a certain decent middle ground that allows us to close this gap for our collective good. To our colleagues in the minority, I think it is clear as we go along that we need to work together to achieve a certain objective for the country. And so sometimes, yes, we all get, whipped up and whips are put in place that let's do this, let's do that. But I think we have to look at the country's interest at this point in time. The world is ready to help us. China, the Paris Club, the external creditors, we have reason to believe are all with us in a good place now. And they're all looking at us to see whether we as a country will get our act together and help ourselves. So my call, my appeal is to us in government, those in the minority, those in the economic groups, that we all need to find a certain common middle ground and ensure that at the end of the day, these revenue bills pass and we're able to close this 4 billion gap or so, and then be able to cross this threshold for our collective good.
And what signals are you taking from the minority?
I don't have any signals from them. It's the initial conversations that they've put out that we're all privy to. But I think all of us can continuously talk to ourselves over and over again. That it's not about the majority versus the minority. It's about Ghana now and Ghana when we're able to cross this bridge ahead of us. So it's not about us or them or MPP against NDC. It's not a battle between us. It's about being able to complete these prior actions in a manner that is satisfactory to our citizens back home and to our external creditors and to the fund as well, so that we can cross this bridge together.
Don't you think you need to scale up the engagements to bring them on board, to help them buy into your ideas so that they can?
My specific answer to your question is that I am not privy to it. I know there are people who are handling it. From my point of view, the appeal is what I'm making, that collectively, regardless of our various interests, we have to understand that we're at a very critical junction where all of us need to find a certain common ground and get these measures passed so that we can bring or cement that stability that the Ghanaian CD in particular and the Ghanaian economy is beginning to enjoy. We have to quickly do that so that we can now move to the bigger agenda of getting the broader economy growing again, expanding again, and accommodating a lot more people. Now, about 85 billion is not chicken change. 85 billion CDs is a lot of money. Even if you forget about the specific nominal figures we are talking about now, the rule of thumb is that about 20 to 25% of economic activity should be coming back to the Treasury, for the Treasury to use that in funding all the things that we are looking for. Somebody has a factory somewhere out there, and the road to that factory is not being tarred. Water supply is not available there. Security is not available there. The way to ensure that these services are delivered is partly by ensuring that 25% of the productivity from that factory is paid back to the National Treasury so that it can be used in delivering this one. The reality is that, and I've been saying this over and over again, we live in a country where we are just doing about 13, sometimes 14, 15% of that. So you have another 10, sometimes 12, 13% of productivity that is not coming back.
Well, that's Kojo Ponkomo, Information Minister there. But as we do know now, the Chinese authorities have expressed their willingness to support Ghana's current short-term liquidity challenges. The Asian country, from what we're learning from the Finance Ministry, has also pledged to continue to support Ghana's medium and long-term developmental aspirations. The Chinese Finance Minister, Liu Kong, gave the assurance when Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta led a delegation to engage China over the $1.7 billion debt that we owe them. But let's go on to the telephone now, and Richard Amuhene is a tax expert and a partner at WTS Nobles Fields. Amuhene, thank you so much for time on Hot Edition. So you've heard the business community's concerns that, you know, if these three revenue measures are approved by Parliament, it's going to increase the cost of doing business, and they would eventually pass it on to us as consumers. Government also says, look, I need the money. I need these revenue measures to be approved so that we can even get the IMF board's attention. How should government approach this balancing effect so that you don't end up killing the patient after the surgery?
Well, let me greet our listeners and also to speak to the issue. You see, our country has passed through a lot of problems, economical problems, and socially we have gained some things out of them. But with regard to the issue that is being raised concerning the approval of this by Parliament, it has to be understand that some of these conditions have to be added to the kind of IMF programs that we are making. Without them, we will not be able to succeed in what we are doing. With our mindset in the country must be just towards that end. I expect the government to explain these things to our people, to understand, not doing it with things to know. It's very difficult to accept some of these things because the condition attached to this. Many of our businesses in this country will not be able to cope issues. They will not be able to function well, and it will lead to the collapse of our industries, which we are trying to build to employ many of our people. As such, government needs to explain this, the time period, and when this thing is going to end, if they are going to accept it at all or not accept it. But without letting the people know well about these things, this is the way to go. And many people rise against it, and it's not able to work. Because we are not in a democratic dispensation. And therefore, some of these things need to be explained to our people to understand why some of these things have been made to be approved by Parliament.
But in the end, this is the position that government has taken, that they want the money. And so if they take into consideration what the business community is complaining about.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Moen, can you hear me? Unfortunately, we have a little hitch in the telephone connection with Richard Amohene. He's a tax expert and a partner with WTS Nobles Field. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. Keep your thoughts coming in on Facebook. We're live on Facebook as well at 3FM 927 on Twitter and Instagram as well as we speak. Now, there's some worrying news coming through, which we're monitoring quite closely. 8 persons are reported dead after a boat headed for a community in the Karachi West District called Bajoti capsized on River Oti. Now, the accident allegedly happened due to the overloading of the boat with about 16 persons for a boat designed to carry just 8 persons. So it had double the capacity that it was meant to carry. A former assemblyman for the Karachi Chumru District, Kingsley Chamba, indicated that the members of the community are often averse to the use of life jackets even when they are provided for them. This comes 10 days after 5 people died after a boat carrying mourners capsized on the Volta Lake on Saturday, March 18. The boat was conveying the mourners from Azizanya to Azikampe when it capsized on the lake. The 5 people died instantly. So that's very, very worrying development that we're monitoring quite closely as well, and we'll be updating you as the information comes through. And as you may already be aware, the New Patriotic Party has also lost a member of parliament as we speak. Philip Atta Baswa, member of parliament for the Komewu constituency. The 54-year-old MP died on the dawn of March 28th. That's today. His tragic passing came exactly a week after the passing of Dr. Anthony Akotose. Before his parliamentary exploits, Mr. Baswa served as chief executive for the Setre East District from June 2005 to January 2009 and was also a teacher at the Agol State College. The NPP, in a statement, also eulogized him and described him as a gentle and astute politician whose contributions to the party, constituents, and the development of Ghana through his work in parliament cannot be overemphasized. And from a parliamentary correspondent, we understand he was in parliament on Thursday, but on Friday he was admitted to the hospital and couldn't take part in the approval of the ministers. So that's what we're hearing now. Let's go to Cape Coast now. My colleague Judith or Chitando is following the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, who visited Cape Coast. And Judith, good evening to you. Thank you for connecting with us. Tell us what Kamala Harris has been up to in Cape Coast.
Right. Alfred, so I'm still in Cape Coast, and Kamala Harris, the U.S. Vice President, has just exited or left this particular area. Now, we had two things doing today at Cape Coast. Firstly, we went to the Chief's Palace, that's the paramount chief of the Ogwa traditional area, the palace. And then she moved on to the Cape Coast Castle, where, she went through the entire castle and looked at how it was. And of course, have an emotional moment and understand really what happened during the slave trade. But at the Chief's Palace, where I was, there were two requests made by the paramount chief of the Ogwa traditional area. He wants a liaison officer to be appointed so that could be bridge the gap between Cape Coast and the White House itself. He wants to be closer to the White House, that is Cape Coast in itself. And so he also asked for a reciprocal visit to the White House. So these were two requests that were made by the paramount chief of the Ogwa traditional area. And of course, these were the things that he asked for. And these things were granted by the Vice President of the U.S., Kamala Harris. She has already appointed the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Ghana, as the liaison officer for them. We are yet to hear whether or not she would allow that reciprocal visit. This is what she's been saying.
We'll hear from her shortly, but also I'm sure that being there, she touched on the year of return and all these issues related to slave trade, isn't it?
Well, she didn't speak too much on that issue. She was more about, talking more about the fact that she wants to see how this whole Cape Coast Castle is. In fact, the paramount chief was telling her that when she goes to that Cape Coast Castle, she would understand how cruel some men were to some Ghanaians. And so these were the words he used, and he just wanted her to have a feel of what really was the challenge of these of most Ghanaians during the slave trade era. And so when she moved on there, Thomas Khan was with her. She gave more details on that. But at the Chief's Palace, these were the things that were said, him asking for a reciprocal visit, as well as him asking for a liaison officer to be appointed to bridge that gap between Cape Coast and the White House.
We can take a listen to Kamala Harris now, shall we?
To hold each other's hands for a better future. And that is why...
The thing I will say is I will now officially appoint a liaison. The ambassador to Ghana, who is here with us, I have now appointed you, Madam Ambassador, to be an official liaison to His Highness and to this extraordinary group of global leaders, and then let us figure out the next steps. But I do appreciate the points that you have made, and there is an unmistakable tie and bond, and all relationships that are good relationships are founded on trust and consistency and reciprocity. And so I appreciate the points you have made, and we will follow up with your request. How could I deny a request from my host? I've been raised properly, you know. But it is my honor, and with my husband and our delegation, to be here. And I appreciate the accommodations and the effort that you have made to welcome us so warmly. I too believe that we must remember history for many reasons, especially in the face of, at times, those who would attempt to deny it. And we must teach it, but teach it also with an understanding that it should teach us not only about our past, but about our destiny and our future. That we must learn from it in a way that we make the ancestors proud and understand the broad shoulders upon which we stand.
Well, that's U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris there, and getting some more details of what's happened as well in the Cape Coast. Thomas Khan is with Judith Awochitando. Thomas, now you moved with her beyond this particular function. What has she been saying in the other places that she's visited so far? Unfortunately, we lost them on the telephone. We'll try to raise them back and also get some details for you as to what's been happening there. And it's about some 43, that's 13 minutes up to the 6 p.m. and Nanekia Mensah-Brampa is here. Let's get into the world of business. Now, the Bank of Ghana has been talking, is it not? The Monetary Policy Committee has been meeting, and they put out what they decided on earlier today. And also, they raised concerns about some of the banks who have capitalization challenges after the domestic debt exchange program, is it not? You've been listening to them. Okay, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Alfred. Right. So the governor has been speaking, and that has brewed a lot of debate within the business circles, because the governor said beyond the banks that they know have been insolvent within the period that was previous years when they came out with some banks who were not solvent, they've not had any updates or new banks coming out to say that we are insolvent. So if you're a bank and you have any issues with solvency, you should apply as expected. So that is what has raised concern. Beyond that, we've had industry players also reacting to they've been reacting to the 29.5% policy rate raised by the Bank of Ghana, the 150 basis points policy rate. So these are some of the conversations that have been going on within the business circles, Alfred.
Super. So stay with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Nanekia Mensah-Brampa will bring you all the details in the world of business.
3FM 92.7, Urban Lifestyle Radio Station.
3FM 92.7.
3FM 92.7.
Right, thank you so
Urban
much
Lifestyle
for
Radio
staying with us.
Station.
It's still Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Time for business with me, Nanekia Mensah-Brampa. Coming up, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry has lamented the Bank of Ghana's latest hike in policy rates, and it claims that the decision would further push the cost of credit up. The central bank, in an attempt to fight record level inflation, increased the benchmark interest rate by 150 basis points, and the latest hike of 1.5%, that is 29.5% for where the Bank of Ghana sits, according to the chamber, would worsen their plight as businesses are already suffering from global supply chain disruptions, increased taxes and tariff adjustments, among others. In a statement, the Commerce Chamber warned of dire impact on consumer spending, investment, and possible job losses if the business climate remains favorable. And talking about the policy rates, also, we see some reflection on how the city is faring against its major trading currencies. Well, it's not been doing too bad. The city is creeping higher against the major trading currencies as lenders reportedly hold first creditor meeting to discuss possible debt relief to support Ghana's bailout program with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. The local currency is selling at 12 cedis, 13 pesos on the retail market, representing nearly 2% appreciation from its value on Monday. The city has largely remained stable from last week following the government's announcement that China is willing to offer financial assurance to Ghana. Courage Boti is lead researcher with GCB Capital.
Across the market, it looks like there is some momentum over the last few days, if not the last fortnight, really. It's obvious we are quite close to getting a board level approval now. I think the obstacles on the way tend not to be the bilateral creditor committee so much again, but more of our local parliament and how those three tax bills will be passed. With China coming on board, attending the first creditor committee, considering the request to co-chair, the reality is that the things that have driven the city down from last year, the picture seemed to not have changed so much, even if the dynamics are different. From last year, reserves were much higher than they are now. But the city is relatively more stable this year than it was last year. So I think some of these little developments kind of speak to the relative stability we've seen. Of course, 22% depreciation year to date is quite significant.
And that was lead researcher with GCB Capital, Courage Bote there. Information Minister Kojopo Nkrumah has rallied support for government's new tax proposals aimed at raking in an additional 4 million cedis to the states. The controversial tax policies, according to government, is a major prerequisite towards concluding negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. And speaking to the media, Mr. Ocansey Nkrumah urged Parliament to consider approving the new tax bills.
So I think the first thing we must understand is that for every revenue measure, somebody will be affected. And so it is understandable that somebody will push back saying that this will affect me. That's understandable. But we must also look at the bigger picture of what we want to achieve collectively as a republic. And in the midst of that, also be willing to have a certain conversation. What are the tweaks that can be made to the current draft of the bill as is, so that we can find a good middle ground and still close this about 4 billion gap that we need to do on the revenue side. So I'm not even too fixated about arguing with UTA or AGI or something. We must find a certain decent middle ground that allows us to close this gap for our collective good. To our colleagues in the minority, I think it is clear as we go along that we need to work together to achieve a certain objective for the country.
Information Minister Kojopo Nkrumah there. Just before we go, the Chief Executive Officer of the Upstream Petroleum Chamber, David Ampofo, has suggested Ghana changes its investment strategy for the upstream petroleum sector in order to attract more investors. He observed a true friendly business environment is needed to drive in investments. David Ampofo noted Ghana needs to leverage its natural resource for its energy transition to avoid stranded assets.
It's so important that we do all we can to attract investment, to develop our oil and gas resources as quickly and as much as possible and get real value. I mean, the gas will give us power, but the gas will also give us fertilizer. The gas will give, I mean, even that's going far, good LPG. There should be sufficient supply of that at an affordable cost. And we should be using LPG for cooking and so on. Transportation is a big part of energy transition. Remember, okay, they brought the electric vehicles. Let's be careful. Don't let's have a situation where, I always say Africa, we're sitting here in another 20 years' time, they'll come and pack all the old cars with combustion oil and gas engines from Europe and America, come and dump them here because they are using electric vehicles and you are now trying to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, you've got resources that are stranded. I mean stranded assets, meaning that you are not able to exploit your oil and gas because it's a lot of money, it's a lot of technology, it's a lot of effort. So we should be really thinking through what we can do. And if we have partners who can do it, why not?
And that's it for the business segment on Hot Edition with me, Nana Ikuya Mensah Brampa. Alfred?
Well, thank you so much. And it's live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're live on Facebook at 3FM 927. The office lobby is here with all the news in the world of sports. The Black Meteors are in action.
Just about a few minutes to finish the game. Still 1-0.
1-0. Yeah. So that gives us an advantage, correct?
It qualifies us. To ultimately to the under 23 AFCON. But I mean, I expected them to do better. There were so many chances that were not buried. And I mean, if you're going to a tournament with this backline that looks very inefficient, then there's a problem. And so let's just see how it goes
because I saw a clear chance for a free Ebani, and he's been very wasteful at the front. Anyway, Well, let's get into some stories here on the sports segment here on the Hot Edition. All the Black Meteors are set to earn a place at the under 23 Africa Cup of Nations as they lead 1-0 in Kumasi. They drew 1-1 in the first leg. Abdul Fattah Shahaku scored the goal for Ghana in the first half of the game. Now my colleague Ralph Sarkodie of Akuma FM is on the line. Ralph, what can you report from the Babara Stadium at the moment?
It's been a very impressive display from the Black Meteors over here at the Babayara Stadium. Let me start with our attendance. Here has been very, very impressive. You have almost about 30,000 persons, close to at the stadium watching the game. And so that has been a motivating factor for the Black Meteors, who has had a very impressive run over here at the Baba Yara Stadium. Very compact team. It's been very, very exciting watching the Black Meteors. The attacking trio of Isahako, Miyama, and Akriye Banye has been absolutely phenomenal watching them. Except the unfortunate wastefulness from Akriye Banye, who has been perhaps you would say that not so impressive when it comes to going forward, because a lot of the chances as it were have come back through him. Unfortunately, he's not been able to utilize them. And so when he was substituted, you could clearly see that the supporters were very, very frustrated with him and really vented their anger and their displeasure in terms of his performance. But it's been amazing from middle to attack and defense as well. It's been a very impressive display. They've not really given the Algerians a lot of spaces to operate. The Algerians, I must say, are not bad at all. They have tried, they have probed, they've done everything possible to try and find a net. But the lad has been very, very energetic, very impressive as well, preventing the Algerians from scoring over here at the Baba Yara Stadium. As we talk now, the referee has signaled for the end of the game, and that means that the Black Meteors are through to the African qualifiers, where they will be attempting to pick one of the 3 tickets available for the Olympic Games. But it's been a very, very wonderful display from Kenko and his boys over here. Right. I can tell you that indeed, every fan who came here to the Baba Yara Stadium lived here with a lot of imprint on their mind, knowing that the Black Meteors did not disappoint here at the Baba Yara Stadium. However,
thank you so much, Ralph Sarkodie. Ralph Sarkodie is correspondent for 3 Sports at Akoma FM in Kumasi. Thank you so much, Ralph, for joining us this evening here on the Hot Edition. But to some more stories, let's move away from the Black Meteors and head straight to the Black Stars, because yesterday they got a 1-1 draw, which effectively puts them at the top of the table, 8 points at the moment. And former Black Stars player Sam Johnson has praised the team for their performances in the doubleheader against Angola and believes they can achieve bigger things if they put in the work.
They should play as a team. They shouldn't be one hero. It shouldn't be, I'm the hero. And also, when we are hailing them, it shouldn't enter their head, because we know they are good. So we have to praise them. They have done well. We have to praise them. They're doing well outside. We have to praise them. And which we will do for them to come up. But it's not for them to be,
That's Sam Johnson there, who's a former Black Stars player. Now still to a final story, and in Europe, where Wales captain Aaron Ramsey has highlighted the need for the team to maintain their fine form as they host Latvia in the Euro 2024 qualifiers later this evening.
We need to take care of our home games, which we've done so well in recent campaigns. I think the fans have played an absolutely massive part in that. So no doubt they're going to play a big part in this campaign as well, in helping us achieve our goals to get into Germany. So with them right behind us, with us being at home, we need to take advantage of that, and hopefully we can come away with all 3 points.
His name is Aaron Ramsey there, he's captain of the World side. My name is Alfred Ocansey. That's all the sports. Over to you, Alfred.
Yeah, thank you so much. With all the news in the world of sports, you find more at 3 Sports across all social media platforms. We'll get to what the Speaker of Parliament has been saying and in response to the Vice President of the United States and President Akufo-Addo's statement on LGBTQ persons and their rights being respected. But Akova is here with all the details in the world of entertainment. Akova, what's the latest?
All right, coming up on entertainment tonight, some Ghanaian talents who were invited to interact with US Vice President Kamala Harris have called for more of such engagements to put the spotlight on their works and connect them to opportunities. They spoke to 3 Entertainment's Owusu-Warai.
Seems like she's very happy with what this space is doing. It's called the Freedom Skates Park. and it's just allowing young people to be creative, to be free, to come here to express their creativity and give them a space to do that. And she seemed very excited about it. There were a lot of superstars and people here who were speaking fast slangs to me. So I just said, yeah, please, okay, sure, okay, hamburger. Then I just, but it's good vibes.
Yeah, but what do you pick generally from this session?
Man, you know, it's like, for me, if I'm being honest, I just see how much potential young Ghanaians have, and unfortunately how much our youth is being let down. So these small things really make me feel like, okay, maybe they shouldn't just give up. Okay. Maybe there's a chance, you know.
We need things like this, you know, Ghanaian producers, Ghanaian, you know, creators. Happen to also meet the Vice President, Kamala. Yeah, I feel like this should happen more often, and big shouts.
So some Ghanaian talents there speaking to 3 Entertainment's Owusu Warai. Moving on, the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, who's visiting Africa with Ghana as its first stop, has published a list of her favorite African songs. Now, the 25-song playlist features tracks by 10 Ghanaian artists, including Black Sheriff, Sarkodie, Amore, and Kwame Eugene.
Vice President Kamala Harris has shared a Spotify playlist of 25 songs she has been listening to in the past few months while traveling through Ghana, Tanzania, and Zambia.
Can you hear this song? If you hear this song,
Sarkodie's 2022 banger, Countryside, Kweku the Traveler by Black Sheriff, Kwame Eugene and Rotimi's Cryptocurrency and Fanti Love Song by mentor of FOK and Boys fame made it onto the list. The playlist also included tracks.
Well, that's all the entertainment news here on Hot Edition, powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa. Thanks for your time. Alfred, over to you.
Thank you so much with all the news in the world of entertainment. And before we go, the Speaker of Parliament has this afternoon waded into the LGBTQ conversation started yesterday after he expressed anger over the slow pace of work of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee to have the bill passed. The debate over the appropriateness of the bill and whether or not it should be a part of Ghana's legislation was resurrected yesterday during the press conference between U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Akufo-Addo. According to the U.S. Vice President, the rights of the LGBTQ persons must be respected. And President Akufo-Addo, in his response, however, said the bill had been modified but not yet passed. Speaking at a breakfast meeting for the Parliamentary Christian Network, Abang Babwing raised objection to the president's assertion he would come if need be, and this is what he had to say earlier today.
We have 2 of our members who happen to be leading our committee, Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, who are handling the bill. And since we referred it to them up to date, we have not heard anything. I've reminded him many times on the floor of the House. What are the challenges you are meeting? Report to us. If you take action against them, say, oh, because I'm MPP. That's why he's taking action against me. I'm NDC. Because he's taking action against me. Because he's not in my party. That kind of division, that is not the purpose of politics. Politics is meant to unite us. Diversity is natural. There's nothing you can do about it. That is creation. And that is the spice of life. How come we are using that to divide us? Please, let the report flow. We need to legislate. Our friends just passed their law in Uganda. We may not go the way they have gone because our constitution is very clear as to the direction we should move. And so we'll be guided by that. So if we pass any law against the constitution, it's unconstitutional. So we have to do that. And so what are you afraid of? If you have the whole people behind you, if there's somewhere else, they will be asking questions.
That's the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumanakins for Bagme. That's it for Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Was live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. Thank you so much for staying with us. The drive continues with DJ Faculty and Giovanni and AJ Sapong. I am Alfred Ocansey. Join me at 10 p.m. on TV3 for Ghana Tonight. Have a great evening.